Doctor, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, a topic like thyroid, I mean, if you talk to me about a broken foot, I understand a broken foot. If you talk to me about a skin problem, I understand an acne problem or something. How in the world do we touch base with this topic of thyroid?
Well, we have to realize that the thyroid gland is one of the largest glands of the endocrine system, and it's located right here at the base of our neck. And we have to realize that the thyroid gland controls a lot of our metabolism. And metabolism is defined at the rate at which you break down food into energy. So it's basically, a lot of times people have low energy, if they have sluggish weight loss, or if their metabolism is lowered, if they get cold hands and feet, moods, emotional swings. These are all symptoms that the patient may have a thyroid problem. And so the best way to deal with that is to actually test the thyroid gland out.
Now, when you say a thyroid problem, I think what you're saying is not so much that it's not working at all, but that it's not working in an optimal manner, which is the perspective maybe that alternative medicine takes. It's how to take something that's functioning and maybe make it feel a little better. Is that how you come into the topic?
Well, yes, absolutely, but a lot of times some people may be above the normal reference range, which means they may have what we call hypothyroidism, a slow thyroid, and we may approach it that way. But for those people who are just starting to say lose their energy, getting more sluggish, can't lose weight even though they're exercising more, they're eating less food, a lot of times we can see that the thyroid gland may be trending toward what we call a hypothyroid state. And if it's trending that way, we as functional medicine practitioners want to change that chemistry and get the optimal thyroid functioning. And an example of that, or analogy I like to use, is sort of like the carburetor, or it's sort of like the RPMs on your car. You can speed the RPMs and have it run a little faster, and some people like that. Other people just like to let it run. So, the ranges for a thyroid can be, depending on which ranges you look at, we like to use the most current updated set of guidelines, 0.3 to 3.0. So if somebody, let's say, is at a 1 and now they're at a 2, now they're at a 2.8, well, as soon as they're above 3.0, then they're going to be classified as hypothyroid. So if we see them trending toward that state, then what we want to do is kind of reverse that process to try to prevent them getting into the pathological range.
Well, let's keep going with a little description of the thyroid gland again. Tell me a little bit more about it. It's located where exactly?
Well, it's located right here at the base of your neck. Of course, you can't see it with my tie on, but it's below there, and it's actually can hang behind this sternocleidoid mastoid muscle. And a lot of times you want to palpate in that area, or to the act of feeling it, to see if it's been enlarged or if there's any goiters. Sometimes you can see people with actual goiters sticking out the side of the neck. Usually that's due to a thyroid enlargement. And but the most common way is to actually test the thyroid gland, and you need to test it actually through blood testing.
Okay, now a thyroid gland has, as part of it, what it does, that it actually manufactures hormones. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. And we have to realize that the thyroid gland, basically the thyroid gland is important in making hormones. And if you want to take a look, we can basically put up a graph over there. We'll actually show you what how the thyroid gland actually makes hormones. And you can see that we actually get iodine from our diet. And what happens is that iodine will then go ahead and hook up in the thyroid gland with tyrosine. And what happens is that if two iodine molecules hook up, that's known as T2. If one iodine molecule hooks up with tyrosine, that's T1. But when three hook up, 3 iodine molecules to one tyrosine, that's T3. And if 4 hook up, of course, that's T4. Now, those are actually the thyroid hormones that we talk about when we're looking at the thyroid gland itself.
Now, when we talk about hormones, that ties into the idea of receptors, and of course we have a slide 4A we can look at. What is a receptor?
Well, a receptor is that, well, basically a hormone is a chemical messenger, and the hormone has to go through the bloodstream, and it gets to a cell. And on the cell, there is a molecule called the receptor, and so it has a certain configuration. So in the slide that we have up on the screen, basically what happens, you can see that the hormone receptor kind of locks into, the hormone itself locks into that receptor site. So it's like kind of a hand into a glove configuration. Each receptor can be a different molecule, and just let me take an example of this here. You can see, like, if this is a receptor and this is a hormone, it has to fit exactly on there in order to get the right message into the cell. And what happens is a lot of times there are toxins in our body, other hormones may get in there, and what happens is that when this hormone comes along, if that receptor is blocked, you can't get the message into the cell. So we have to realize that hormones are chemical messengers, and they have to go through the receptor site to get the message inside the cell. And once inside the cell, they may give a different message.
Now, you're telling me that environmental stresses, such as pollution or stresses on the body, could put the body in a situation where hormone utilization in the body is impaired?
Oh, absolutely, and that is quite prominent out there, and that's why detoxification is so important. We have to realize that there's certain things like plastics and chemicals in cosmetics and lotions and shampoos that can actually clog up this receptor site. It's like maybe getting gummed up. It's like a carburetor that gets gummed up. And what happens is that if this is blocking it, then what happens is a hormone comes along, it tries to get into that receptor site and tries to send a signal into the cell. Now, it could, with this in the way, it could be sending a mixed signal, it could be sending a stronger signal, it could be sending a weaker signal, and that in effect will actually affect the hormonal output of what's going on inside the cell.
Now, you mentioned some symptoms that are related with a thyroid pickup balance problem. But, you know, lethargy is something that a lot of people, I mean, maybe 60% of the population at any given time may say that they feel a little tired. Mm-hmm. What would be some keys for you to notice in yourself that it could be thyroid? What would be specific to thyroid?
Well, the biggest thing you normally see is that they have stubborn weight loss, the inability to lose weight, they're run down most of the time, cold hands and feet, those are other things. Outer third of the eyebrows actually thin out, or they lose the outer third of the eyebrows. These are all symptoms that actually happen. The hair thinning could be related to the thyroid. Constipation could be related to the thyroid. So not just energy alone, but we have to realize that these symptoms can also be related to other organs and glands in our body. So not only do we have to look at the thyroid gland, we have to look at other glands such as the adrenal glands. In my book, I have a chapter titled the Adrenal Glands, Your Thyroid Gland's Best Friends, because the adrenal glands help support the thyroid gland, and if you really want to fix a thyroid gland, you also have to fix the adrenal glands. And remember, the adrenal glands are a stress gland, so if we're stressed out a lot, they get fatigued and we lose our energy that way also.
So you're saying that there is a physiological basis upon which the connection between stress and your body's health are linked?
Absolutely, and when we talk specifically about the thyroid hormone, we showed how hormones are made. Well, thyroid hormones are then released in the body, and we have to realize that some of those go from T4 to T3, and for that conversion to take place, and T3 is the active ingredient, so for that conversion to take place, you need certain nutrients such as selenium, such as zinc, and that conversion is actually inhibited by cortisol. Now, cortisol is released from the adrenal glands, which are our stress glands, so if you have a lot of stress, high levels of cortisol, you can't convert that T4 into T3, which is the active hormone that works at a cellular level. So stress can have a huge impact on the thyroid gland.
So it can impact your body's ability to get hormones utilized.
Absolutely, and the conversion of those hormones.
Right, and how are thyroid hormones converted into active hormones in the body?
Well, you know, as I was saying, once they're released into the bloodstream, they get converted mostly in the liver, and that requires selenium. And basically, when you have that conversion, once it is converted, it's the free T3 that goes out and travels to the actual other cells of the body, and some of it may go into the gut and be turned into reverse T3, which then may actually be turned back.
We have a slide up. What's the slide?
Active T3? Well, that basically shows that the way our thyroid gland works is, first of all, we have two master glands up at the top of our brain, the hypothalamus and pituitary, as you're seeing on the top of the slide, and basically they send chemical messengers down, and the pituitary will send TSH, the thyroid stimulating hormone, down to the thyroid gland to tell it to produce T4 and T3. Now, the two little arrows going back up tells you that when the blood levels get low, what happens, this is a feedback loop to go back and tell those, basically the hypothalamus and pituitary glands, to release more of those or shut those hormones down. And we have to realize that a lot of times in conventional medicine, they only test that TSH level from the pituitary to the thyroid. So there's all these other mechanisms that come into play, and it's a very important part to actually determine whether someone has a thyroid problem or not.